Hello everybody, hope you're doing okay. Welcome to the woods in Oxford. I'm rather precariously perched on a branch here looking at the Nike Pegasus 40, a daily trainer from Nike. Now usually the subject of a lot of derision by my fellow YouTubers, but I actually quite like this one. But did you ever play a game when you were younger of Spot the Difference? Well, the Nike Pegasus 40 here and the 39, other than the fact that obviously the two different colorways, very little to choose between them. And if you like the Pegasus 39, then you're certainly going to like the Pegasus 40. But you might be wondering, why would you actually bother to get the Pegasus 40? Well, I think the only reason really is if you like the colour of this one rather than that one. So the Nike Pegasus line has been going since 1983, which funny enough is the first year that actually started serious training on a non-stop basis. So I've been going now for 40 years. I haven't had a Nike Pegasus every single year since, but I've had quite a few on the way. And the 39th edition here is one that I actually really liked. I think it's the first full React shoe that I actually got quite into. They certainly made it a bit lighter than previous editions, and the React wasn't as much as a brick as it has been in other shoes like the Zoom 3, if you remember that one. So this year they decided, I think, basically to not do a lot with this, despite the fact it was the 40th edition, which was perhaps a bit disappointing. I think people were hoping for a bit of ZoomX, but don't forget this is quite a budget shoe in the general scheme of things. So I picked this one up for £91 because I got a 20% discount for my failed Vaporfly 3 order, which is quite a nice price. I mean, even at full retail it brings it 115, and you can imagine in a few months time these will be coming in a good discount, which perhaps begs the question of should you pick one up now. As I said, I've run 250 miles now in the 39, so it's time for a new daily trainer, and I'm starting to think in recent times that I actually prefer a trainer that's just a bit firmer than, say, the Invincible or something like that. So I tried the Invincible, I just found it just too soft for me, and it was a bit heavier than the Pegasus, and just felt like on easy days I was just trying too hard to go easy. It should be like a more comfortable feeling. Yes, it was really squidgy, but it was just feeling you bouncing up and down more. With the Pegasus and the React foam, just a sort of a slightly firmer foam, but they also got the airbags in the front and the rear, as did the 39, so nothing's changed there. So I'm just finding it's a ride that's sort of a subtly cushioned ride, but also a bit of responsiveness as well, and a bit of firmness, a bit of ground feel maybe, but just sort of like a good compromise. And it's a shoe that you don't have to spend an absolute fortune on, and yeah, for daily training, just a shoe that gets the job done. So the last few weeks I've had a bit of a hamstring issue, so I've been running a bit, and I've been walking doing the leaflets, and I've been walking, so this has been a good shoe for all three purposes. It's quite a good walking shoe, I found. So a lot of people think buy running trainers to actually walk in as well, so if you want to do that you don't need to sort of like take out your worst pair of running shoes, the ones you've retired, because I think these will make a very good shoe as a walking shoe as well. In terms of the shoe itself, we've got a full length Nike React midsole, we've got an airbag underneath the forefoot, and we've got an airbag underneath the heels as well. So it's sort of, when you feel just walking along, it does feel like a lot more squidgy, so you can sort of feel that on the heel and on the forefoot as well with that airbag. But when you actually get going, just sort of does firm up a bit, but you have that nice little springiness there. Nike did say with this shoe that they've actually improved the arch support and the toe area. Well, I haven't really sort of found that it's a great deal of difference. What I have noticed that compared to the 39 that has the flywire, we've now got this band. And it's interesting that actually the 40 has actually gone up in weight very slightly to 370 grams from 355 in my size UK 13, which is slightly disappointing, but I don't really say that I noticed it on foot. And I think the difference is here that this sort of plastic band here actually extends all the way down. So going back to the Spot the Difference competition, well, there's not really a lot of difference here. You can see there at the back, there's slightly more flared out on the 39 than the 40, not really much in it, and I can't say that it has much difference on foot. The upper itself is pretty similar, just a slightly different type of material. It's quite hard to know because it's a different colorway whether there's actually any difference. Now, if you remember my Nike Vaporfly 3 video, that shoe was actually a bit wide for me. No problems at all with the Pegasus 40 or indeed the 39. This midfoot band holds down my midfoot very well. It's a bit more room in the front, I would say. They did say that they've improved the toe comfort in the shoe. Can't say I noticed a lot of difference, but I have noticed just a slightly more structure around the edge of the shoe in the 40 compared to the 39. Which may also contribute to the slightly increased weight, because you've got perhaps a bit more structure here and in this midfoot band, adding a bit of extra material. Just want to compare the on-foot feel here of the Pegasus 40 on the left to the 39 on the right. Kind of a very similar achieved lockdown between the two. Actually, you've got the tongues there about the same distance apart, haven't I? I actually did cut the laces on this one. I did actually try doing a double knot on the 40 initially, but I found it was just rubbing a bit too much in there, so I took it off, and then after a few runs of walks they got a lot better. I think the slightly different upper here means that it's actually sitting up here, so well, that's more sitting down, so I've got a nice little gap there over my
at the end of the laces there, which is quite handy because it's got a bit more room. It does think it's slightly more room around the edge than here, so if you've got a wide foot then it might help, but don't forget there is actually a wide version, so don't forget that, of course.
In terms of the outsoles, they're absolutely identical, no difference there at all. If you look at them side on, there's absolutely no difference at all. So I think the Asics thing is that if you like a shoe that isn't too squidgy and you don't want to spend too much money, but you want something that's tried and tested, also a shoe that you can perhaps pick up the pace in a bit. I always find with the Pegasus that if I want to do strides at the end of a run, it's a nice little shoe for that. And also if I want to pick up a few miles in the middle of a run, then it's not too bad. Obviously normally you just do what you're told in terms of what you're training for, but sometimes you just feel like you just want to put a extra spring in your step, and it works out quite well. I mean, certainly this is not a race shoe, and I certainly wouldn't race in it. I mean, they're quite heavy relatively, not quite obviously the response of the Zoom X with the carbon plates, but you know, in terms of doing the job for a daily trainer, it does the job just fine. Now you might be wondering why Nike actually went to this midfoot band idea. Well, when I looked at my shoes, I've got the Pegasus 39 Shield edition here, and you can kind of see that they started to go with that sort of style of shoe from the 39 Shield. So it's almost a case of they did the 39 and then I thought, okay, we'll go with this midfoot band for the 39 Shield, and in the 40 we'll just keep with it. So you might argue that the 39 Shield and the Pegasus 40 are much more similar than the Pegasus 39 and Pegasus 40. And even in the Pegasus Trail 4 GORE-TEX shoe, you can see you've got the same sort of band idea here. And interesting, the Pegasus 4 GORE-TEX here is exactly the same weight for me as the Pegasus 40, so that's quite nice. They're all about 370. And the Shield edition just a fraction more, not much in it. Now you might be wondering, all these different versions of the Pegasus, which ones would be best for each thing? Well, obviously for the road in dry conditions, the Pegasus 40 would definitely be my choice. If it was a road run and it was very wet and I wanted to keep my feet dry, I might go for the Pegasus 39 Shield. Only downside with this one, it does feel slightly sort of firmer on foot, and this Storm Tread outsole, although it sort of does the job very well, it just doesn't feel quite as flexible when you're running along. So I think if I had a choice between the two, and there's only a bit of wetness in the air, I'll definitely go for the regular one. But this one is a very good option if you want to keep your feet dry. And it's not too bad on the trails, but if I wanted to go for sort of the best of all worlds, in a wet, could be dry, could be a bit of mud, then the Pegasus Trail 4 GORE-TEX is the ideal one. And if anything, the Trail GORE-TEX one actually feels slightly softer than the regular Pegasus, which is interesting, which does give them a rather familiar feeling on foot. So if it's a wet conditions, obviously going to plump for this, or maybe the Shield. And if it's dry, then I'll go for this one. But if I get caught out in a bit of wet, you got the outsole on the Pegasus regular 40 is really good actually. And for light trails, it's not too bad. But obviously with this sort of colourway, you're not really wanting to take it through mud, because it's not going to land up that colour for much longer, is it? So in summary, I'd say that if you want a sort of a standard daily trainer that doesn't cost too much, has a sort of relatively firmer feel by modern day standards, but certainly has a lot of nice cushioning, then the Pegasus 40 is definitely one to check out. But equally, if you can see a Pegasus 39 a very good deal and you like the colourway of that one, then I'd probably just go for the 39 if you wanted to save a bit of money. But also find it a bit daft for YouTubers to say how to spend your money, because at the end of the day, well, it's your money, isn't it? So I hope you found this interesting. Like and subscribe to that, and see you in the next one then. Bye! Hello everybody, hope you're doing okay. Not too far away.